Hi there, Randy Green here. Let us continue the text material. I have in the meantime made some podcasts that are now in the higher order senses exercise course material where I am working more in depth with the body elemental. I kind of stopped there as well because life came in the way, but I want to jump in here to do a little bit more theoretical on the text material before I go back in and work with the body elemental, because the goal is, of course, to get rid of the body elemental. And even though that I have stated and are stating both in this material as well as in the exercise material that the body elemental is technically what's upholding our physical processes, and it is connected to the chakra system, and it is, for some, it has turned into the naga, as I talk about in my older material. It is important that we transform that body elemental as not being the one that's in charge, but transform it into something that's collaborating with us. And while we are doing the transitioning from the lower order energy fields via the chakra system, dissolving that, removing the alien inserted technology as explained in the advanced energy work course material, and get rid of the intermediary holographic overlay layers also explained in the transition science course material, we will then work with the body elemental to assist us in these processes. So that's the first big step of working with our higher order senses. That is to learn to collaborate with the body elemental. So in a way, we could say the first communication skills we develop, the first higher order senses that we develop, are technically tied to the communication with the body elemental. And for some, it kind of feels talking to yourself. Most people are actually working with the body elemental, whether they know of it or not, or as well as the energetic parasites that it is creating room for. So we have this body elemental that looks like a very big slug. It has a lot of astral energy cords. It is connected to the astral plane. It is connected to our subconscious, and it's connected to our emotional field. And it goes in and it affects us in numerous ways that we are to discover. Sorry about that. There was, and this is where I want to go as well, there was very heavy chemtrailing here yesterday. Crisscrossing on the sky here in Denmark. And I actually made a podcast about weather modification yesterday. And of course, today my voice is ragged. I have coughings. I have got things I need to clear out from whatever they are using in these processes. It affects our physicality, but I've also got the heads up that it's also slowly wearing out the body elemental. At the same time, and that's made for a specific reason, and I'm not going to go into that because that has to do with the transhumanism and the merge and all the other stuff I talked about other places. And here I don't want to focus on everything that's working against us. I want to focus on where can we actually work, because they kind of say, well, yes, it is important to know what's going on out there, but it's kind of a huge reality field we have little control of and have little impact on. So what we do have control of and impact on is who we are, our own energy system, and what we need to do. And the body elemental is the first very important thing to get in contact with and learn to transform so that it can become our best friend, be our coexisting, synergetic, symbiotic TG that we can work with until it has realized that its job is done. It has helped us clean out, and in that way you could say released its own karma, because it has got what we could call higher order types of genetics that are connected to the fourth cycle that were connected to the reseeding. So it must undergo the same process of progression until it discovers that either it has a purpose and a function that continues its existence or accept its fate and go into evaporation and say, well, my job is done here. I have no further to contribute. My genetics are now in such a low energetic state that the only next step for this is either to go into the underworld or being used magically by some of the factions of Atlantis. And that's what we want to prevent here. And when I say this, then those of you who are under imprisonment contracts, you also understand that that is tied to the body elemental. So the body elemental is enormously important for us to get to know and get to work with. It will tell us what kind of program it's part of. my body's enslavement program. So my elemental was under that. And that's where I want to focus, because that's kind of, in a way, for the majority of the human population, that is what's going on with the body elemental there. Those of us who still have one, those of us who still have an energy system that is the bridge between the physical form and the higher order energy system. There's a lot of people out there that doesn't have a higher order energy system, that doesn't have a body elemental, that are just the 3 lower fields connected to specific type of technology, or connected to what used to be quite predominant as under the old world order program, connected to one of the fourth dimensional beings in the artificial fourth dimension under the old world order colonizing races. So there's a lot of there's not one fit all in this work. So what you are to learn here is the method, not necessarily if you're this or that or whatever. When we get into the specificities and classify ourselves and say, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that, then we miss the point of the work. We miss that it's not about who we are and what we are, it's about what to do about it. So that's where we need the frame of references. So we kind of say whatever we are until we know what we are. We know that the first step of the double awareness and the higher order senses is to activate the body elemental. And that can be done via the work with the chakra system, which I will return to a little later in this class material as well. The whole understanding of our domain and the outer reality and how it's built up is explained in the transition science material. So I will not go further into that, other than I have put the illustrations there for those of you who haven't done this course material before. Page 3 is taken from the whole philosophy book, where you will then have the deeper explanations. It's also explained in the template science course material. So I will not go into details with that. The higher order transformative energy system that we have on page 4 is from the transition science course material. Sorry about that. And it is the transformative energy system, and it is explained in the last to the detail in course 7 in the transition science course material. But course material is built up so that the transition sciences course 1 up to 6 lays the grounded foundation to understand the transformative energy system. But if you kind of understand that that was the original one that was done for the restoration program, and you thereby say, well, that's technically our higher order energy system as it is inside the enclosure. It has been tampered with, it has been altered, but this is the way that it was supposed to work. This is what we were to repair. This is what we were to reconstitute and reconfigure back into. And if you understand, well, that's where the overlays have been imposed upon. That's where the body elemental has been put in as an intermediary step. That's the body elemental connect to the chakra system that goes into the 3 lower fields that by that are arranging and administering our what we call a human presence inside the enclosure as it is today. Then you kind of have the step ladder of, okay, where does the body elemental fit in? And how does it connect to the higher order energy system? And by that, you also understand that it is a kind of a deva being. If you go into the Alice A. Bailey material, it is the intermediary principle, and it is the one that can be hijacked, and it is the one that can get in the way, and it is the one that we need to connect to and learn to work with. And that gives us into the higher order sciences on page 5. But for here, since I already touched ground with the chakra system, I will go into that first, as in kind of that's what we need to clear out so that we can get in contact with the higher layers. And that goes in with the individual challenges and clearing work. So that we will look into now before we go into the higher order realms and begin to understand how these different realms are built up. And I will, for the sake of clarity, make a little bit of insertion in the text material where I haven't done it before this, but now when I explain this, I will put in kind of, you have the transformative energy system, then you have the holographic overlay that's how to connect to the artificial fourth, then you have the body elemental, then you have it's connect to the chakra system, and that's connect to 3 lower fields that connect to a physical form. So you kind of have that. And when we have that in mind, we then can go into the individual challenges and clearing work. Of course, I've explained this to the details in the transition sciences, but here for the context of the body elemental and the chakra system, I will work with it within that context so we can say, okay, I've now stated what the body elemental is and why it's important we transform transform it, and why it's important that we eventually let go of it. And that goes with, first and foremost, get the technology. It's connected to the cube above our head. The larger elemental beings, it's connected to the grid elementals. I talk about this as well in the Advanced Clearing Work courses 1 to 4. And then get our individual body elemental to dissolve itself, release its content, or disintegrate its content if it's too dissimilar to who and what we are, and then remove the pattern that holds it connected to the 3 lower fields, and then see it completely disintegrate. And we can only do that when we have removed the alien technology, when we have removed the holographic overlay, and when we are in the process of getting in contact with our original restoration energy system, or the transformative energy system. And we can only do that if we live by the rules and the laws and the principles as explained in the transition science courses. So it's a catch-22. You can't get rid of the body elemental until you actually live as you're supposed to in the outer domain. And you can't live as you're supposed to in the outer domain before you get rid of the body elemental. So it has to be this kind of, it's not wannabe, it's not work living as if, but it is training to live by the principles, training to perceive reality by the principles, learning to engage with other people by the rules of engagement, and learn to see reality by the laws of energy. So with that, we are in our everyday awareness, our alpha state, we are processing the information of reality as if we were already connected to our higher order energy system. We transform energy and we do energy work as if we're already connected to our transformative energy system. So this is the trick, because if we do that, then we condition the body elemental to move away from the base program settings it's coded into, and into the higher order states of awareness where it's supposed to operate as well, and where it can operate as part of the 4th cycle. So it can assist us in the awareness and clearing of timelines in the 4 cycles, because that's what's connected to. So again, it's going to be our best buddy. You can literally see how you put your arm around your shoulder if it has such, and tell, let's do this, buddy. Let's work together. Let's get this done. Let's figure out how to do that. And the best way to get in contact with your body elemental is to do it in clearing work, as well as to do it in the horizontal energy work, as I talked about, as well as in the vertical deep state work, which I talk about as well in the transition science course materials. I will here, for the sake of repetition and within the context, work with the materials. So the individual challenges involve the work with the lower order fields and how we can clear these to get to the point where we can rebuild our higher order constitution. As long as we are trotting along in our human form, exercising our human will, mind and emotions, we will not get to the higher levels in us. This goes without saying. What you give energy, what you focus on, you will become part of. So if your life is built up of everyday life challenges, you have to go to work, you have a family, you have a partner that's not doing the work, you have kids that kind of works against it because they just want mom or dad to be what you always are because they don't like changes. You go to work, your boss wants you to be in a specific way, you visit your friends that are not doing the progression work. So your whole setting is around the base program, and you're trying to lift yourself up into a higher level of awareness, which is completely impossible, because everything you are aligned with your outer circumstances. It aligns with the relationships you have. It aligns with the daily task you put onto yourself. It aligns with your everyday life. That's how the lower fields are engineered. They are engineered to interact correctly with the base program as it is, controlling your brainwave continuum and what your brain waves are capable of doing inside the frequency fence. It's controlling your emotional spectrum to have human emotions and range within human normal behavior and what humans are supposed to do to interact with each other, having love, having kindness, having all of the spectra of all of the spectrum of the human emotionality, going from one end to another and pushing us back and forth in the human emotional merry-go-round, ups and downs and merry-go-rounds. And that's the human emotionality keeping us occupied, feeling, thinking, processing information, due to our relationships, what's going on there, dragging our attention towards the outer reality. Going to work is dragging your mind capacity, your emotional capacity, your physicality to the outer reality as part of the base program, where you go to work and you do human stuff, base program stuff. tailoring and engineering and re-engineering your 3 lower fields to be completely absorbed into the base program. And that's why in the class material, I have made this kind of the changemaker material, suggesting you find somewhere where you can, there are possibilities to have jobs where you can do both. Most of the time, the moment you go to work, you become under a different jurisdiction. The moment you enter the door of your workplace, you're technically in their jurisdiction, and by that align with their jurisdictional energies and what is the configuration behind that company. So that's kind of how it goes. If you work from home, you can minimize that connection, but there will still be energy cords because you're still doing the job for them. You're still under contract. So this is where eventually it will be better to have our own business, but driving your own business in a reality that really doesn't want us to do the progression work, not so easy. Trust me, this is the 10 years I've been doing is every month I have to really focus on that things will sort itself as it always does, but it's under the mercy of whoever and whatever feels that they could have advantage of making their humans go my way and do the progression sciences. And then they discover, okay, this is too difficult, this is too much, and people bail out for reasons and purposes. So with that, new things must come, but we can say it's kind of a progression journey. So we are having these challenges of saying, okay, we are in a reality that really doesn't want us to progress. We're in a physical form that's engineered to keep us in the base program. We are in emotional relationships that are engineered to keep us in the base program. We are having thought processes that are engineered to keep us in the base program. So how do we do this when we know this? We use it as an opposition, as I talk about in the first 3 courses of the transition sciences. We say this is an opposition. We can use it to transform ourselves into higher forms of energy. It takes more effort, it takes more clearing work, and I would say at minimum 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour midday, and 1 hour in the evening. And for those of you who haven't listened to my material before, the last 6 years, I have more or less been in constant inner work and clearing work, day and night, literally clearing and clearing. So if you really want to push the button, well, then the amount of clearing work and the amount of inner work we put into it will define how far we are getting with our clearing work and our reconstitutional, to use that word, ways of reconfiguring our energy system. It's like having been a couch potato our entire life. We have enormous amount of overweight, and then we decide to run a marathon. It takes training, it takes changes of eating habits, it takes discipline, it takes change of our entire lives, setting everything in the context of I want to run a marathon. And that means to change our body configuration. It means to change what we eat and how we absorb food and energy. It means we change our belief systems and how we see ourselves, the narrative about around our lives, around ourselves, around our relationships. It involves that some of the friends we had that were also couch potatoes, they will fall away because they are not interested in running a marathon, and they are tired of listening to you talking about the marathon, and they don't really like you looking at you losing all that weight that makes them see themselves in the light of being fat as well. And they just kind of go out and say, yeah, sorry, you're just too much reminding me of all the things I actually try to not see, all the things I'm trying to eat away in my comfort eating, all the things that I don't want to touch, which is too painful. I don't want to be around you because you remind me of my pain. So that's mostly why some people either become aggressive towards us or in any ways or forms are just letting us go slowly, ghosting us, whatever they're doing. And it is a good analogy with the couch potatoes because people have been lazy. They have not been monitoring their energy system. Many went into oblivion because it was too difficult. And they are reborn in bodies that experience that pain as a hidden trauma. They don't know what it is. They get re-traumatized in every life they come into. Sceneries are being arranged around them because they haven't dealt with the original trauma, the original hit that really shook them to the core of their energy system. They are part of the enslavement program. They don't understand what's going on. They can go into psychotherapy and understand what has been done to them in this life. That is in many ways a replay of what's been done in previous lifetimes, going all the way back to the initial going into oblivion and going into the enslavement program and the stripping of the capacities that we used to have as higher order solar system humanities. So the trauma digs deep. And that's important when we also understand some of the challenges that we have here. There's a lot of pain involved with this. And that's also why the body elemental is both our best friend, but also our worst enemy, because the body elemental it's a sensitive creature. It doesn't like pain. It doesn't like things that makes its energies go in a specific way. It is very conservative. It wants to be in the steady state where it feels comfortable, where it can just sustain from desire energies or love energies or kindness energies or anything that makes it feel good. It just wants to feel good. Everything that doesn't feel good, it pushes away. And this is when we talk about psychotherapy and we go into the understanding, okay, we actually have an entity that is part of the homeostasis system of our psyche, that is part of tailoring our emotional responses, that is part of tailoring our emotional mental processes that defines how we feel and how we think. Then it becomes quite clear the moment you get rid of the parasites that it is nesting in its own field that are imbued into our emotional and biofield. And we get rid of these parasites, then the elemental itself begins to wake up. It has to undergo an awakening process too, as I talk about in the Old Land of Kimmeru, where I have this hidden playlist on YouTube, where if you go, you listen to the first video or you go to the playlist, then you can listen into all of the smaller ones where I begin to talk about how my stomach also had to undergo an awakening process and understand that it's not to get its food from outside, but actually to undergo a transformational process and awakening process itself into its higher order capacities. So that's part of the challenge, that we are an entire body that also needs to awaken. We are having emotional, mental, and biofields that needs to be transformed. And we have a body elemental that's working against it because it likes comfort zone. It likes the narrative of who and what it has become in this life. And it is prohibited from thinking further than that. That means its genetics are also prohibited via the prohibiting technologies. So it lives in the idea that it is awakened to a degree because it has conscious processes. But the matter of the fact is we needed to look at itself as well and say, well, I'm a slug. I'm not supposed to be a slug. I don't have legs. I don't have a body. I'm in this body. There's something above me that's not mine. This body is not mine either. There is a personality matrix there. I'm inserted here. Why am I in this symbiotic relationship with this body and these three low fields when I look at my own genetics and see they're actually from a fourth cycle that I'm not even playing out the capacity of? And that's where sometimes the body elementals say, well, I need a tribal setting, and then it creates these semi-spiritual effects around itself, pushing people into spiritual realms. And now you begin to understand why I always said the higher self doesn't exist. This is the body elemental. It's the body elemental that communicates, oh, you need to do this and that, whatever, if it has begun some kind of activation process due to the collapsing of the prohibiting technologies. The body elemental wakes up suddenly and says, hey, I can't completely got absorbed into all of this pleasure and physical desires and crappy food and what have you, and I actually feel unpleasant. I can see it create a lot of distortion. Wow, got so many parasites attached to me. So that's the first thing that technically wakes up, because that's the one that's connected to the prohibiting technologies that are now dissolving. So it's not the higher self that activates, it's the body elemental. And this is a claim, and you are more than welcome to dispute it. Either way, we could say it is in a way, because it has more active genetics that we have in our three lower fields. We can look at it as a type of a higher self, but it's better to be in alignment with it than seeing it as something that's more advanced than us, because clearly it's not. It's a sack of genetics. So of course it's not more advanced. It just has residual replicative energy units and replicated consciousness units from something that it used to be, and it will discover that its original form is in stasis somewhere, that there's barely anything left of that original form. Some of the ones that were taken over by the colonization, some of the ones that really got punished by the Dracos, they became the foundation of the body elemental. And that's its own sad story, that it has to discover that it's technically a Frankenstein being, that it's dead, that its original form is in stasis, that the original energy system doesn't exist anymore, what it has got a replication of its original configuration, and that it has very little to do with what it used to be. So that's a moaning and mourning process as well the body elemental has to go through. And that's why it protects itself. It doesn't want to see this pain. Similarly, as you don't want to see your pain that led you to your higher order energy system being taken out, get a holographic overlay, get a body elemental in, and now whatever's left of your original consciousness is now downsized to be part of this physicality as a personality matrix, recirculating within the reincarnation cycles. That's the part of the original consciousness potentials you have now in a very, very downsized state. So that's your basic level of your personality matrix. So we are having a system that in all ways and forms are working against itself. And that's why the pain comes in, and that's where we could say the misguided effort or dukkha or suffering, or however you want to put it in. I'm working with some of these ideas as well, understanding that everything in this world and everything that we are in a way misery. It's kind of an existential conundrum. I'm supposed to be happy, why am I not? This is a beautiful world, why do I then feel so miserable? Why do people feel miserable? Why do they do what they do? Why do they get old? Why do they get sick? Why do they die? So this is where we kind of go in and say, I know this should be different, then why isn't it? So these are some of the challenges that we have. The high order levels of us contain the consciousness genetics, the original template, or as I call it, holographic energetic architecture, and the higher order energy system. So we are here having the consciousness genetics that are part of the upper template. We have the original template that's holographic architecture, and we have the energy system that's connected to that. And we have, when we say the template itself is the architecture behind the energy system. So that's why I just call the holographic energetic system in my more recent material. But here we will have that one, and I'll put it in brackets, what I now call it, so you don't get confused. These parts have been hidden from us. We are to figure out how to reconnect to the true parts of us and then put in the needed work to activate them. I put in something new here. I said that part of your personality matrix is a replication of your original consciousness configuration. For some of you, for others, it's something completely different, especially if you're under imprisonment. You can't really trust what's connected to you at all whatsoever. But that bridge can be crossed too. You can merge what you are, disintegrate it, and collapse it all, and then build from what you have in this physical form, and then reconnect to whatever your original vessel and your original energy system, wherever that is probably in storage somewhere. So that's part of ensuring that you won't activate, literally having you in a body where you only got portions of yourself that are energetically or via the entanglement principles connected to the body in stasis, as well as the holographic architecture that is kept in some kind of, we could call it kind of energetic pod, where it's kept for until you have outlived the sentence that were granted upon you from typically the Niburians. Anyways, that's not where I want to go, because that work is not for others to do. Only the ones that have got themselves into that mix are the ones that can get themselves out. Nobody can do anything for us, including the enslavement programs. They are tied into either being captured. That means that we got ourselves in some kind of problem. Either we participated in wars we shouldn't have participated in, or we were in a system where we weren't clever enough to flee when we could, and we remained, and by that got captured. When we saw the craft coming in, we didn't leave, or we couldn't leave, and then we got captured and brought to this system where we got enslaved as a possibility and opportunity for continued existence, as it was so nicely put. But all the way we made choices, and we made choices that led to the situation that we're in. So part of our reconnection to our higher order levels of who and what we are is to go through the processes of what choices did I make that put myself into this position, not being victimized. The time, if we want to say, where can we rightfully say we've been victimized? The timeline event. None of us asked for that. That was done to us. So that's part of, and as well as the TG and the body elemental, they are the ones that got hit quite severely, and that's a realization for the body elemental to get into that it cannot become human again. First and foremost, because the body's in stasis and probably been chopped up to the degree where it no longer can act as an organic vessel. But the holographic energy system has been changed from a trinity system, as the Kalontics call it, a trivector system, into a bivector or a dual system where there's only the artificial fourth and the technology that is above it. So it's no longer functional as a living being. To be a living being, you have to have the trinity structure. You have to have the third cycle, fourth cycle, and fifth cycle inside the solar system that we are part of. You have to have a field, a biofield, emotional field, a mental field, which is the lower level. That's why we have got that. Or the three higher levels of the original biofield, the vibrational field, and the radiation fields. That's the trinity structure that all living beings have. We have been downsized into have an artificial lower outer domain configuration, an outer domain lower trinity configuration, biofield, emotional field, mental field, whereas in the original version, we would have had what we call a fourth and fifth and sixth cycle configuration connected to the outer domain body that would then be engineered in a way so that we will work with the timelines that needed to be cleared out. That would be an engineered lower field configuration we would adapt into so that we could work in the outer domain. And for that, we will typically put our higher order energy system in storage somewhere. The higher order system always worked with trinity structures, and I have put that in the understanding of, for now it's on page 8. I will shuffle that around a little bit because I'm now changing the pages and the order that I want to talk about these things. But I put that configuration as well there. That's fifth, sixth, and 7, or 5, 7, and each one of the configuration are 3, 4, 5, and 5, 6, 7, and 7, 8, 9, and that's how the configuration should be for all of us. So we are these trinity structures that are divided into other trinity structures that are divided into other trinity structures that technically give the star configuration of the tree pot going into the hexagram, going into what's called the enneagram. Not that it be conflated with whatever you find out there, but these different forms of configuration from 3 to 6 to 9 that goes with the different outer domain, middle domain, and inner domain, where in each and one of these domains we have a trinity structure. So that's important information as well. So before we begin the bigger work, we need to arrange our everyday life to make room for the transition work. It is not possible to go on with business as usual if we truly want to progress. The everyday life must change because it is partaking in the distortion program, in the enclosure or the base program. That's the same. Our choices must reflect the principles, the rules, and the laws, and it is a given that we cannot sit on both chairs in this work. If it's no matter what text you find in the older spiritual teaching systems, it says that you will have to leave behind everything that is part of your normal life. You go through different initiations. Some go into ashrams, other goes to monasteries, others go to specific factions or groups or brotherhoods or whatever, create a secondary life inside this life. It goes without saying, if you are to be part of the high order realms, that's the choice. You choose to go inwardly and you choose to excel in the inner realms and the expansion of your perception field and your radiation field and your emotional field and your influential sphere. And when I say emotional field, I mean vibrational field and its influential sphere and your biofield. And you choose to transform everything you are. And you then arrange your outer life so that it is possible. Whereas before you begin the world and everything that was in it was engineered to keep you in the base program. You here go up against that. And that's the first great battle that we have to take. We must choose our reality setting. Either we are part of the base program in the normal human life, or we live accordingly or according to the higher awareness and begin the journey to regain what we once were. And that means losses. That means changes. That means that our comfort zone will be challenged. That means that we will have to let go of things that once were important to us that no longer are important to us. We will transform what we are. we will have dear friends and dear relatives that chooses not to be part of us anymore or be in our lives anymore because it just becomes too complicated and they don't like what they are in the light of what we are becoming. And that's not their fault. And we just have to meet that with kindness and patience. And some can stick around, some choose to stick around if they have a lower order insectoid that is kind of okay with being at the bottom of the food chain, so to speak. They prefer to be around us instead of being under the control of whatever they're under control of. They choose to shift into our jurisdiction and by that be there. But some of them are also being used as targets to get access to us once we get into the higher realms and we really begin to build a jurisdiction. And then it's up to us to figure out, okay, can we some way, somehow become the protectors, quote unquote, for these insectoids that are in human form that we call our parents or our friends or whatever they are, or what must we let them go as well because they are just being used too much to get access to us. And that's part of the journey too. Some will remain, some will leave, some will come back. We never know, but what we can say is that whatever is going on, whatever happens, whatever ups and downs we have, each situation, whether it goes for the highest optimal outcome for both of us or it goes in the opposition, whatever happens, we must balance the energy field in ourselves and in the situation every single time. We can't do it for others. We can't balance their fields unless they are our close partners, and that means that they are literally tied to us energetically, physically, emotionally, every day as living together in the same household, and have said this is okay and given consent to be part of the field that we are creating and are in alignment with us doing the progression work, and to some degree have an understanding of the progression work and are understanding the consequences of remaining as part of our relationship, that it will change their fields, that it will change the lives that you have, that they also have to let go of things because they choose to be with you, even though they might not choose to do the progression work, they still choose to be in the field of one that is doing it. So that's the direct consent that they have to do to remain in a relationship with you. And that can work. It will give you a lot of extra work because then you will be the main upholder of your joint field, which were part of some of the dual energy systems that were created already back in the times of Atlantis. So it is possible, and that's a whole other level of information that at some point, if I do choose to go into some parenting work and relationship work, I will look into these things, what those of us who have pushed us quite far in the progression, what we can do when we begin to create new relationships with people that are not as far as we are, that might not even get there at all, but at least are in the understanding of what we do and are in the acceptance of what we do and are in the deep-rooted feeling that they want us to do it. They want to support us in what we're doing. They might not choose not to do it. They might choose to work with something else, but they are choosing to support us in kindness and in loving kindness and being in that heart-filled energy where they constantly give out the non-harmful energies, as in they're not imposing us. And when they're being used, they are also in the acceptance of this has happened, this is what we need to clear, this has made it difficult for both of us, and then have a high degree of understanding and the ability to forgive each other and accept each other as where we are. So it demands a different psychological structure to be in a relationship with one that chooses not to do the progression sciences. We can also go together in different kind of joint households where we live with others that are doing the progression sciences, and that will also demand a new type of psychology. So that's further down the line. So there are possibilities, but it demands a lot of us. We can't do this blindfolded. It has to be a conscious step all the way. We need to be observant of what's going on all the way. So for those of you who still want to do the fourth cycle as part of a relationship or as part of a tribe, then it will demand a lot of you. You will have to become the leader of that tribe. You will have to be the one that are the main person that drags the relationship to where you want it to go. And the other one has to be okay with that and work with you to go there, even though he or she might not be able to do it. They still need to be in alignment and understanding, at least have listened to some of the material so they understand, okay, this is not a religious movement. This is not something that is detrimental to my life, but it definitely will change my life. And eventually it will probably change it to such a degree that he or she also has to let go of their everyday life as part of the base program, whatever they choose to do. So this is a way of saying, as it's also been made, let's do an analogy, and I'm not comparing our partners with animals, but it's like having a dog or a cat or something else that is on their own evolutionary level of their journey, and your partner is similarly in another evolutionary level of their journey. And similarly, that we can compare the dog and the cat. They just love you. They just want to be with you. They just want to be kind to you. They just want to be in your energy because that feels nice. And our partners feel the same way. But the dog and the cat cannot do the progression sciences, and our partners might not be able to do so. But we are taking good care of our dog and our cat. And we are clearing our dog and our cats for whatever comes into them. And we are making sure that they are kept in a pristine energetic state, so it will not interfere with our home, and it will not interfere with our jurisdiction, and it will not interfere with our energy work. Not that we are controlling them, but we are maintaining them. Huge difference. Free will must apply whatever life that choose to be around you and coexist with you, be it a cat or a dog or a bird or a fish or a man or a woman or a child or whatever it is. It's your obligation to maintain that they will not come in harm's way if you choose to stay with them. If you for some reason feel that you can't do that, then solitude is the answer to that one. So to get where we can recreate all that we are, we must solve the puzzle of the in the way lower order fields, that is the electromagnetic controlled overlay of the biofield and DNA, along with the emotional field and mental field that hold programming to fit us into the base program. That used to be called the Interactive Simulation Program, aka the ISP. There can be more layers inserted, such as the chakra system, which is regressed CRNA technology, TETs, built for the intrasystemic lineages, the ones that wanted to do the full cycle, but then decided to do it via the use of technology, as I explained in the earlier podcast in this course, and other layers we might have created over the span of numerous lifetimes. The low order fields are inserted to block the high order energy system from connecting to our organic biofield and allow our own code systems to unfold, leading us back to the density energies we also are able to process and integrate. So with that, I will leave this podcast here. I will shovel around the text material a little bit, and in the next podcast, I'll come up with the correct page numbers, and we will continue the course material of how to get rid of the chakra system. I've talked about that other places, but here we are now in the midst of, okay, in the clearing work of the chakra system, we are also beginning to transform the body elemental, and there we really can begin to release our high order senses. So this is a different approach than most people are saying, well, I go to school where you learn to be clairvoyant. Most people that are accepted into schools where you can become clairvoyant already have clairvoyant abilities, which the clairvoyant leader typically can see that people have the abilities for it. So you're technically not learning to become clairvoyant. You are just reactivating the capacities you already have by the instructor and the mentor. So that's also important to understand. Self-healing abilities, you already have it. It's just dormant. It's not being taught to you. It's been reactivated, and onward and so forth. So with that little information here, see you in the next podcast. Thank you.